I think I got a long ways to go and a short time to get there. So I ask you to open with me to 1 Kings 8th chapter. We're going to read a few verses here. Try to get to the point of the message, but may have to lay a little groundwork first. So that's what I mean by a little ways to go. 1 Kings chapter 8. I want to start reading in verse 54 and read down through the 61st verse. We're going to read all this. It kind of tells us where they are and what's going on. Verse 54 of 1 Kings chapter 8 says, "And it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all his prayer and supplication unto the Lord, he arose from before the altar of the Lord, from kneeling on his knees with his hands spread up to heaven. And he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying, Blessed be the Lord, that hath given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. There hath not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses his servant. The Lord our God be with us, as he was with our fathers. But let him not leave us, nor forsake us, that he may incline our hearts unto him, to walk in all his ways, to keep his commandments, and his statutes, and his judgments, which he commanded our fathers. And let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant, and the cause of his people Israel at all times, as the matter shall require, that all the people of the earth may know that the Lord is God, and that there is none else. Amen. Let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments, as at this day." So that's as much as we're going to read. We see here that what is taking place, Solomon has just finished his prayer of dedication unto the temple. It was built, as we know, that the specifications were given unto David, Solomon's father there, that this is the way it's going to be built. This is the way that God wanted it to be built. And Solomon finally got around to building this temple, and it was a magnificent structure. I'm sure it was beautiful to look upon. But most importantly, it was a place where God said, this will be where I meet with you. This will be the place where I have placed my name. And I think that is what truly made it a glorious place. I think that's what makes the Lord's church a glorious thing today. It is not the building as much as that's where God has chosen to place his name.
That's right.
But he says that when Solomon was done making a prayer and all the supplications that came along with the dedication of that temple, that he then turned and he blessed all the congregation, all the children of Israel that were present there that day, as they had all gathered unto that dedication. And he said with a loud voice, saying, Blessed be the Lord God that hath given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. There hath not failed one word of all his promise, of all his good promise. Let me read it right. There's not been one thing of all his good promise that has failed. He has kept all those promises. He made sure that they all came about, and I want to look at a few of them real quick so we know what it is he's talking about. In Joshua, the 21st chapter, starting in verse 43, it said, The Lord gave unto Israel all the land which he sware to give unto their fathers, and they possessed it and dwelt therein. And the Lord gave them rest round about according to all that he sware unto their fathers, and there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. And the Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. And there failed not aught of any good thing which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel. All came to pass. So we see here in the book of Joshua is this being related here into what Solomon said there at the dedication of the temple several years after this, that Joshua in his day, when all the children of Israel had came into the place which God had promised them, how we read here in the 21st chapter of Joshua, that they came in the land, they possessed it, and they dwelt therein. But what I find to be the key word, I think, to all of these things is not that they had possessions, not that they had a land, not that they had a goodly homes, but it said that they had rest round about. It said here in the dedication that was given, or this blessing that Solomon was given unto the people, he said that the people had rest unto his people, that God had given rest unto his people Israel, according to all that he promised. The reason I slow down and I take a little bit of time for you to ponder that is because a lot of times we view blessings in a much different way. We think about blessings, we think about, the windows of heaven being opened up, that many good things be showered upon us, the things that we cannot contain, the food, the clothing, the housing, and all the things we think about, these material things. Those are the blessings from God, which we cannot contain. And we overlook the great value that is given to us in the rest that God is able to give unto us. So we look here, they were brought into a land, a place which God had promised. What seems to get the emphasis is that the Lord gave them rest round about. If Solomon spoken of the people of Israel, he said, "Blessed be the Lord that hath given rest unto his people Israel." Folks, given unto us today is rest. The Lord said, "Come unto me, all ye that are labor, heavy laden." You know what He told them He would give them? Rest. He didn't say, "Come unto me, all you that do a good job and do good hard works. I'll reward you with great homes, and I'll reward you with a good retirement plan. I'll give you all the things you're in need of." He's promised He's able to give us those things if we would come and trust in Him. How about what He said, "If you come unto me, all those that are laboring, all those that are heavy laden, all those that are struggling with the things of this world, all those that are covered about with much working and worry and all the things that come about." He said, "You come unto me," He said, "I will give you what it is you're in need of most of all. I will give you rest." He said, "Come unto me and I will give you rest." Rest unto your souls. We have rest unto our souls. A lot of the other things are much easier to manage. The other things we find when God is able to give us rest, and we trust in Him, we receive from Him the rest that He is able to give us, the rest unto our souls. We find a peace with God, a peace that surpasses all understanding, and it is something that infiltrates and begins to become a part of all of our lives. That peace is there even when the world troubles us. The peace is there. And the rest is there at times when it seems like the world's not willing to give us any. We still have rest with the Lord. A little bit later in the book of Joshua, in the 23rd chapter, starting in the 14th verse, he says, "And behold, this day I am going the way of all the earth." This is Joshua speaking unto the people. He's about to leave them. His task is finished up. His point and his purpose is done, and he knows what's about to take place. "And behold, this day I am going the way of all the earth." We know what the way of all the earth is? Temporary. It comes to an end. We talk about the things of rest which God gives us, the rest unto our souls. It is not temporary. The things of all the earth, they are just temporary. Lives are temporary. Money, just temporary. Houses, just temporary. Debt, just temporary. All the things which we are so wrapped up, concerned about, they are just temporary. All the things of the earth are temporary. He said, "Behold, this day I am going the way of all the earth." He said, "My temporary life is coming to an end." He said, "You know in all your hearts and in all your souls that not one thing hath failed of all the good things which the Lord your God spake concerning you. And all are come to pass unto you, and not one thing hath failed thereof. Therefore it shall come to pass that as all good things are come upon you, which the Lord your God promised you." And I want to pause. I want to stop right there. Don't read ahead if you haven't already. We pause right there. Joshua's telling us that, you know, everything God's promised has come to pass. Everything God has told you He's able to do, He's done. He's shown you, He's brought you into this land flowing with milk and honey. But I believe above that, not just the milk and honey, I think we get wrapped up in the land flowing with milk and honey. But what was it God truly promised them while they were there in Egypt? What was the promise that was made unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob? It wasn't just a land flowing with milk and honey. He said, "But I will bring you into the place, I will give you a land, and there will be a place that you may serve me and worship me without any troubles." That'll be the place I bring you to. And folks, I believe that is what the land of Canaan, it should be representing unto us today, is that God wants to bring us to a place where we may serve Him and worship Him without all the other troubles. And if we would just let God bring us unto that place, place, and we will find ourselves in a position, and we will find ourselves with our needs supplied, that we may be able to do these things, and that is to serve and to worship Him without all these other troubles. But we're too busy looking for the milk and honey. God said, I will give you those things so that you may serve me and worship me without any worry of those other things. That is what the land of Canaan shows me. God says, that is the place I have promised you, that you may come out from among your enemies. You may come out and be set free. From those that want to oppress you, you may be set at liberty and brought into a place of freedom, that you may serve me and worship me. God's people, many of them have not made it to Canaan. They have not made it to that place which God has promised them to be able to serve Him and worship Him without all these other troubles. They have been set free. They've come out of Egypt. They've been led out by a mighty hand, and they have been given a great victory. God showed them that. But now, what are they waiting on? Do they see things that stand in their way? The land seems to be inhabited with giants and other things. Surely it's a land full of milk and honey. It'd be a place I'd love to be. I just don't think we're able to get there. That's exactly what the children of Israel thought also. But we get over here to the book of Joshua, and he says, and you know, he said, I'm going the way of all the earth, and you know in all your hearts and in all your souls that not one thing hath failed of all the good things which your Lord your God spake concerning you. He has brought you into a place where all you have to do now, keep yourself for Him and serve Him and worship Him. God will take care of everything else. He began to warn them also. And he said, and go back to the 15th verse, I'll start it over. Therefore it shall come to pass, that is, all good things that are come upon you, which the Lord your God promised you, so shall the Lord bring upon you all evil things, until He have destroyed you from off this good land, which the Lord your God hath given you, when ye have transgressed the covenant of the Lord your God, which He commanded you, and have gone to serve other gods, and bowed yourselves to them. Then shall the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and ye shall perish quickly from off the good land which He hath given you. What is He saying there? He didn't say He's going to destroy you totally, that you cease to exist. He said He's going to remove you from that place. When you get to that place that you have turned your eyes off of the Lord and you are no longer serving Him and worshiping Him, what He is going to do is remove you from that place. And that place that flows with milk and honey, He's no longer going to supply. And that all the goodly things, He is going to torment you a little bit. He's going to trouble you a little bit until once time you're willing to repent. You're not going to be in the place where you can serve Him and worship Him in the way that God has called you. That's the way a lot of God's people have gotten to be. They got too busy about the milk and the honey and the things of the land. They began to look upon the things of the earth, and they began to follow after those things. And now they find themselves not in that place of milk and honey. It seems like everything's a struggle, and everything's a trial, and everything is a problem, and they don't seem to be able to get themselves. And that just to be able to serve and worship God in the way that He has promised, we're able to do.
Praise.
They're no longer in Canaan anymore. They're no longer in that promised land. I know a lot of people preach that Canaan is heaven. I don't preach that. Canaan still had enemies. Canaan still had its problems. Heaven's not going to have any of those things.
Praise. Praise.
And don't we look forward to getting there. But Joshua said, you know God's done everything He's promised. And as much as you should know that, you should know this also. If you turn your back on Him and you cease to serve Him and to worship Him, you're ceased going to be in that place. Now he goes on in this blessing of the people of Israel. I need to go back to what Solomon has said and get off what Joshua said. Solomon is repeating some of the things which Joshua said. He's telling the people, he said, you've got this place. He said, here's more evidence of it. We have now a temple in this place. A place which has been dedicated, a place which God has set His name, a place which you may turn to when you find yourselves in trouble. You may call out upon the Lord, and the Lord will answer, and He'll hear from heaven. He said, we have this evidence that stands before you today. And he begins to bless these people. And he's told them not one thing has failed. Not one word of all His good promises which He promised by the hand of Moses His servant. And the 57th verse said, the Lord our God be with us as He was with our fathers. He said, the Lord our God be with us as He was with our fathers. I want to stop there. Let's cut that verse in half. It's actually the point I wanted to get to. We're finally getting there. The Lord our God be with us. Now, the Lord has promised to be with us. We read a verse like this, and we all are much like the children of Israel in the Lord's day when He walked. They believed the Lord was with them. They said, God's promised to be with us. We like to flip over, we like to read those verses. He said, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. And we like to say, well, God will never leave me, God will never forsake me. God will always be with me. Wherever I go, God will be with me. That's the way we interpret that. And He says here, He said, the Lord our God be with us as He was with our fathers. And God's been with us. I want to look at that. And let's just look at God being with us just a minute. We're going to leave the warning that Joshua began to get to. We're going to pick the warning up again here in just a minute. But we look over here at God being with us, because what a great blessing it is. The children of Israel were in this promised land. They've been given a place they may come and worship. They have been given a place in which they may praise. They were given a place, and all the instruments and all the people were set in order. And I believe there at the temple and around the temple, there was music at all times. There was singing at all times. Worship was enjoyed, and it was in order, and it was done at all times, day and night. There was always some form of worship taking place in that place. It was being done, it was being performed at all times. And as long as God is with us, worship is able to be accomplished at all times. There's nothing preventing us from worship when God is with us. 46th Psalm, and I didn't mean for this, but the first verse is one of those memory verses for Vacation Bible School. This was not planned. I'll tell you this, it's the way it came about. He says, God is our refuge and strength. This is Psalms 46, starting in the first verse. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be moved, though the mountains be carried in the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river, the streams thereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered His voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. And we look at that psalm, the first 7 verses of it anyway, and read it in its entirety. He said there's a lot of trouble. He said, but God is a refuge and strength, very present help in trouble. And he begins to look about all the trouble which we face. The greatest there, and the first on the list, I believe, is fear. He said, because God's with us, we will not fear. But when we find ourselves fearful, does that mean we're not with God? When God is with us, we'll not fear. He said, though the earth be moved, the mountains be carried in the midst of the sea, the waters, and the waters, I believe, meaning all of humanity, so they roar and they be troubled, and the mountains shake. And that's a lot of scary stuff when you think about all the earth being moved, and all things being moved out of its place. And I don't believe they're just being moved, some sight to behold, but I believe what he meant is they're being moved against God and against His people. They all stand against Him. The heathen rage. All the seas of humanity, they roar out against God's people. He said, but God is with us. He said, the God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. The Lord of hosts is with us. And as long as He is with us, He is our refuge and our strength, the very present help in trouble. The 46th Psalm, we want to read down a little bit more. I want to get the rest of that psalm. He said, come, behold the works of the Lord. What desolations He hath made, and He maketh wars to cease to the ends of the earth. He breaketh the bow, He cutteth the spear in sunder, He burneth the chariot in fire. Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. In that last half of that psalm, he proclaims the might of God, the strength that He has. When we say that God is with us, it doesn't mean that we've just got one on our side. I think that's the way we take that verse. I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. God is with us. And we like to take it as, well, God's on my side. I don't think that's the way we were supposed to interpret that. God on our side. He said, come and look the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made. The Bible said, behold, what great cloud of witnesses we have around us. He said, look at the people, what unbelievable odds were against them, as we like to count odds. He said, you look at cities laid low. You see it, enemies that were ran, turned at flight at just a few. We see the great victories which God was able to give. And this is the God that is with us. This is the God in His great might and His great power. And His willingness to be with us is incredible. But this is the God that is with us. This is the God that is a refuge. This is the God that is Solomon is making His blessings. And that upon these people. And the blessing which is upon God's people here today. The Lord our God be with us. This is not an imaginary and that figment of our imagination. This is not a cunningly devised fable, but this is a God with power and with might, the God who created the universe and was able to see the very details and that of our being. This God is able and willing to be with us.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
And He said He's with you. Joshua told him, he said, that God is with you. And He's fulfilled all the promises. And you see the evidence. Here you are in the land. Solomon is increasing upon that. He said, you see a temple. He said, you see these things. And God's told you, I'll put my name in that place. He's fulfilling all those promises. And He said, God be with you. Now let's bring it to something I think is much more valuable than just having a temple or being in a land. As far as God being with us, in Matthew, the 1st chapter, 23rd verse, He says, behold, a virgin shall be with a child, and shall bring forth a son. They shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. The 18th chapter of Matthew, 20th verse, He also says, where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Ephesians, the 3rd chapter, starting in verse 16, He says that He would grant you according to the riches of His glory to be strengthened with the might by His Spirit in the inner man, that Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, that ye, being rooted and grounded in love. Colossians, the 1st chapter, 27th verse, to whom God would make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Romans, the 8th chapter, 9th verse, said, but ye are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now, if any man hath not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of His. And I just read a bunch of verses there that were a lot more than God's just on our side. What he was speaking about is God being with us is much more than there's a temple, there's a place we get to go and worship. There is a God, and He's willing to fight our battles and give us victory. We talk about God being with us. Unto us now, after the promises which God has brought about. I want to go back to what Solomon said, that he hath not failed one word of all His good promise, which He promised by the hand of Moses, His servant. By the law and the prophets, there was a promise of a Messiah. There were promises made. There was a guarantee given unto the people of this world that there would be one that was going to come that was able to save them to the uttermost. And we see it in the law and the prophets, how they make witness unto Jesus Christ and His saving ability, how that He would not just be a God that was out there, how that we may turn and worship, and He may bring us into a land and give us rest from our enemies, how that He may be a God that is with us, how that abides within us. And we say God is with us. It is a God that is with us. And that's so close that He is in the inner man, and He gives us rest unto our souls, and that we may have a close and personal and have a relationship with this same God, that same one with all the same might, with all the same ability, with all the same knowledge, and that same God wants to come and make His abode with you. God with us. He said that God may be with us, as He was with our fathers. And then he goes on to the 57th verse, and I want to look at the rest of that. He said, let Him not leave us, nor forsake us. Well, what happened to that verse that I was talking about earlier? I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you.
Praise the Lord.
Now what happened to that? As he said here, let him not leave us nor forsake us. Now you know I preach security of the believer. I don't believe you're going to lose your salvation. I believe that God's with us. Our souls are saved. We are His, and we will be His. But He calls us unto something more than just being His children. There's a great reason for us to rejoice in just being the children of God, knowing that our names are written down. The Lord told us that. He said, in all the things, all the ability and powers I was able to give you, He said, rejoice not in those things. He said, don't rejoice that even the devils are subject unto you. He said to rejoice rather that your names are written down. And for that we've all got a reason to rejoice. But there was a warning that came along with it. He said, those that have their names written down, those of you that are the children of God, those of you that God be with you, He said, you be careful and let Him not leave us nor forsake us. I don't believe God made a mistake in writing it that way. He goes on in His warning. He said that in the 58th verse, that He may incline our hearts unto Him. Now, we have God abiding in our hearts, and the Spirit dwells within us. We've been born again. We're the children of God. But in our lives, I want to go back to that abiding in that land which He has promised. He has brought us unto that place where we can serve Him and worship. That truly was the promise God gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They will be in a place where they can serve Him and worship Him. And He says in the 58th verse, that let Him not leave us, nor forsake us, that He may incline our hearts. Do we make an attempt to incline our hearts to hear Him? He said, you give yourselves over to Him that He may incline our hearts unto Him. To walk in all His ways, to keep His commandments and His statutes, His judgments we commanded our fathers. He said, you give yourselves over to Him. This is the way in which we let Him not leave us. This, let Him not leave us. We oftentimes, and we preach this and we illustrate it in this way, that God is moving along in a direction. He is leading us, and it's oftentimes that we get off the path, we go to the right or we go to the left. I'm not sure that's scriptural. As I studied this, I began to think about that. Does that mean that God is moving? Does that mean that God is going from one place to another? The Bible tells me that He is steadfast. I believe He is the one that sits. He presides over all things. And He watches these things as they go by us. He leads them by His hand. As time proceeds by, it doesn't mean much to Him, but it means a lot to us. As He brings about the production of His plan to bring us to that place where we may glorify His children, that He may honor and uplift His Son in our eyes and the eyes of all His creation, as He lets these things go by. And He's got a plan that is being carried out as He watches it all. As He orchestrates it, make sure all things go to His plan. And He says, let us not let Him leave us. And what happens is, there am I in this plan. Here's where I'm supposed to be in that plan, but I decided my plan took me that way. And I've left His plan. I have left His will. He said, let Him not leave us. How do we not let Him leave us? As He guides us along in this plan, I know sometimes I got a plan to run into Walmart, or run into the store to grab something real quick. And I know I got kids that are curious and they got things they want to go see. And there's but one way that I can ensure that I don't leave them and they don't leave me. And that's to hold their hand. Most effective way I've ever found to do it.
Yeah.
And I know that when I'm in a busy place and I'm in a hurry and I'm moving right along and my kids don't want to get separated from me, sometimes without me reaching out for them, they'll grab my hand.
Amen.
And when it says, let Him not leave us, nor forsake us, it is not His will to forsake us, to leave us behind. But we have our place in His plan. We have our place, and it's not just a plan where He's hands off and all we are is a digit or a number. It's a very personal thing He wants in our lives. His plan is also the best for us. That it may bring about the best in us. That He may show His glory and His ability and His might, His strength, and His infinite ability in our lives.
Praise.
He said, let's not be separated from that. And the only way I can tell you that is the best way to not let that happen is to grab hold of His hand. Humble yourself. There's a psalm I got to reading earlier this week, and I don't remember it, and so I'm not going to quote it perfectly. But it said something along the lines of humble yourself into His right hand. And immediately as I read that, I began to think about how the Lord told Israel. He said, oh, how God has desired to gather you together as a hen does her chicks. That He may protect you from the sun, that He may hide you from the eagles that fly over and the hawks who would like to come and do you harm and devour you. How a hen would be so protective of her brood. He said God also has desired to gather you together in that manner. And I see us, we oftentimes let Him leave us. We've left His will. We've gotten out of His will. I mean, He says here that He may incline our hearts unto Him, to walk in all His ways and to keep His commandments and His statutes, His judgments, that He may commit, which He commanded of our fathers. He said what we need to do is give ourselves to Him, take hold of His hand, humble ourselves into His care and give ourselves over to Him, that He may incline our hearts. What He's going to do is, and what He's saying there, He is not just going to bring about the doing of His will in you, but He's going to bring about the willingness in you to do His will. He is going to incline in our hearts to do His commandments. He's going to make His will paramount in our lives. He is going to make in us a desire to follow after Him. He's going to make in us the willingness to do His deeds. That the things which He asks us to do, they will no longer be grievous to us, but they will be joyous for us to do. He's going to bring us into that place. He's going to bring us back to that promised place where we may serve Him and worship Him without all the troubles. They're still going to be there. God said, I'll take care of those. I will give you rest, that you may serve Me and worship Me. He said, I will incline your hearts to do it. He said, and let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night. Listen to this. That He maintain the cause of His servant. What is our cause today? Well, oftentimes talk about for the cause of Christ. What is the cause of His servants today? What is the reason we get up and get about and do the things which we do? He said that He maintained the cause of His servant and the cause of His people. He's speaking to the cause of the people of Israel. I'm talking about the cause of the people of God. At all times, as the matter shall require. God says, I will incline your hearts to keep my commandments, to do the things which I have commanded you. He said, I will work in you not just to do my good pleasure, but the will and to do my good pleasure. He said, my task will not be grievous. He said, I'll give you rejoicing. He said, I will give you rest unto your souls. The things which I give you to do, they will not be labor unto you. He said, but you will be rewarded in doing them. He said, these things which have been commanded, those things that have been told you, happy are you if you do them. He said that God would bring about the willingness in our hearts, that He may uplift our hearts, to keep all His ways, to incline our hearts unto Him, to walk in all His ways, to keep His commandments and His statutes and His judgments which He commanded our fathers. And let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night, that He maintain. And we go back to that word maintain. It seems like there are times in which I know what's happened in my life. Maybe I'm only preaching to me. Maybe y'all have made it into Canaan. You've never been carried back out into Babylon. Maybe you've never left that place. Maybe you've always been in that place where you can serve Him and worship without any troubles. I mean, I can tell you for my sake, there have been times where I've been kept captive again. Not been in that place where I could serve Him and worship Him in the way that I ought to. Not had the freedom that I think that there should be there. That freedom that I know is available. That freedom I've enjoyed from times before. And I need Him to incline my heart to keep His ways, to keep His commandments. And that He may maintain my cause. That He may keep me in His will. That He may keep me in His desire. That He may keep me in His way. That He may keep me in that plan as He orchestrates all these things as they go along, as He watches Him out from His seat of infinity, as He watches all time pass by, as His plan seems to come through fruition, as He's known it with the end from the beginning, as all these things take place, that at all times He looks down, that He may maintain my position in that plan, that He may maintain me. That He may maintain us. He said, not just for me, as He made it very specific here. He said He may maintain the cause of His servant. He is speaking about Himself specifically. And folks, that ought to be our prayer. Lord, maintain me. And He said, but not just me. He said, but also the cause of His people. Let me give you a little trick tell you how that works. And we may pray that the Lord keep the cause of all His people. You know what's going to be required? For all of His people to make that prayer and supplication, Lord, maintain me. If each and every one of us would make that prayer about ourselves first. And I know we're supposed to put the needs of our neighbor before ourselves, but we can't help our neighbors if we're in no fit condition to help our neighbors. We cannot be concerned about the maintenance of all the people until we have first asked, Lord, maintain me. Am I in your will? Have I got the beam removed out of my eye that I may deal with the mote that is in my brothers? Have I experienced the love of God in my life to the degree that I may express it unto others? Have I been obedient unto the Lord in the way that He wants me to be obedient, so that I not just tell others, that I may show others the joy of being obedient? The way for all the people to have their cause maintained is for all the people as individuals to ask the Lord to maintain their cause. That it would be His cause. That it would be His will and His desire. That we would find our place in His plan. And we would be found in His will. You know what the outcome is going to be? All the programs that come about to try to show what God is capable of. And all the things which we try to imagine up to try to show who God is and what great things He can do. He says very plainly right here in the correct order and the way we're supposed to be, that we would give ourselves to Him. He would incline our hearts unto Him. We would keep His ways. We would be found in His desire. And we would be maintained in His will. And then all the people would be maintained in His will. And we would be maintained in His cause. And the outcome is found in the 60th verse, that all the people of the earth, not just the people of this town, not just the people who live under our roof. He said, but that all the people of the earth, you understand the power of what is being said here. He said that all the people of the earth may know that the Lord is God. They may know that He is God and that there is none else. Not that He is a God, but He is the God. And there is no other God beside Him. And they will not look for another way. And they will see by our actions, by Him maintaining us in His will and maintaining us in our place that He has destined us to be. And I want to say that God has got a plan for each and every one of us. And it is to bring about the exaltation of His Son, and that Jesus Christ, and the glorification of our Creator, and to the place that we would maintain that cause, and we would keep ourselves for Him. I will tell you that God will bring about in us a place that we can worship Him and serve Him without any troubles. And in doing so, all the people of the earth will know that He is God. And beside Him there is no other. They will be assured of it, is what that verse tells me. It'll not just be one, though I'll tell you there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels over one soul that is saved. But he said it is so powerful that all the people of the earth will know that the Lord is God and there is none else. That is brought about not by all the programs we can put on. It is brought about simply. Well, I'll say simply, but it's a difficult thing for us. But God has made a promise that we can be in a place where we can serve Him and worship Him. And we can stay in that place if we would commit ourselves unto Him, and He would incline our hearts unto Him. And when that way and only in that way, when He inclines our heart to do so, are we able to keep His commandments and His statutes. In that way and only in that way are we able to be obedient. And we give ourselves over to Him, He will incline our hearts unto Him, that we will live for Him, and He will maintain us in that cause. This ought to be our continual prayer. Lord, maintain me. Not just that, Lord, I thank You for saving my soul. That needs to be in there. I think it needs to be the first thing we tell Him. Lord, I thank You for saving my soul. So unworthy am I. I am thankful for being one of Thy children. I am thankful for being Thy son or Thy daughter. I thank Thee, Lord, for my name being written down. But Lord, now I pray, as Your child, that I may serve You and worship You in the manner in which You have called me to do. And that You would maintain me each and every day in the cause which You have set me into for whatever day I wake up in. And that's the thing that's amazing here. It said it would change as the matter shall require. That we would be found in His will. Sometimes it's teaching. Sometimes it's just praying. Sometimes it's a bright and shining light. Sometimes it's the way we conduct our jobs. That we may show forth God in our lives. He may maintain that cause in His servants. So that all the people may be maintained in that cause. And the outcome would be all the world. That ought to be our greatest desire, is for all the world to know our God. He shows so that all the people of the earth. We limit His ability. We try to say, Lord, I want You to save our family. And I want all my family to be saved. I want each and every one that ever comes into this house to hear the Word of God and accept it and be saved. But why do we limit it to those things when He said very clearly there that all the people of the earth may know that the Lord is God and that there is none else? The blood of Jesus Christ is sufficient for all mankind. And I think we ought to treat it as such. That's my message this morning. Let's all stand. Sister Tanny, if you would get us a song together real quick. If there be a need this morning, whatever it is, maybe you need to come before Him and ask the Lord to maintain your cause, to maintain the cause of His servant. Maybe it hasn't been maintained. Maybe you haven't let Him maintain it. You found yourself out from away from that place where you're able to serve Him and worship Him with the freedom that He has promised. Does it mean that God hasn't kept His promises? No, God's kept His promise. That place, that fellowship, that closeness with Him where we may serve Him and worship Him without all the distractions and troubles, that place is available. What is required for us to give ourselves over to Him? That He may bring us to that place and incline our hearts unto Him. He would maintain us in that place of service and of worship. As we sing this song, if you have a need, maybe you haven't even made it out of Egypt yet. Maybe you're still in bondage to your sins. Jesus Christ has died to set you free. That you may come to that place to serve Him and worship Him, and without being set free, you cannot serve Him and worship Him. Whatever the need be this morning, this altar is open. You want me to pray with you? I'll pray with you. You got any questions for me? I'll answer them the best of my ability. But I'll tell you this, if there be a need, there's but one you may go to, and that is God Himself. He has made Himself available by prayer. Come and call upon Him. As we sing, go ahead, Sister Taylor.